Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. We have made it through 9 rounds of football, but Liam, not only have we made it through an extra 3 quarters, we've made it through the magical portal because there's 9 3/4. Happy Harry Potter round to those who celebrate. And I tell you what, for Harry Potter round, there were some magical games of football that we saw unfold on the weekend. There was some magical goals. There was some magical finishes. And, well, there was Melbourne. So lots to unpack from round 9. Of course, this is your weekly recap show. Make sure you are liking, sharing, and subscribing if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're on one of our preferred podcasting platforms, that's Apple, Amazon, or Spotify, make sure you leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at CMPerfect_AFL, where Liam brings some little best-of highlights from our shows throughout the week.
I do, Jesse. That is correct. I do that from time to time.
I'm saying that to keep you accountable to do it. So if I'm going to plug the bloody Instagram, got to upload to it.
It's tough, Jesse. You said best off. Sometimes we just don't have it.
Sometimes
joking.
It's just rubbish, yeah. No,
sometimes, honestly, I usually cut it, and often the week gets away from me, as is life. Such is life. I think a famous footballer once said that. But yes, Jesse, I think we had a week last week that was completely horrendous, followed by this week, which was scintillating for football. Close games all over the place, like you said, bar one. But I'm looking forward to talking about all that. I'm looking forward to talking about that in our recap. But we don't start with the recap here, Jesse. No. You would like to go on a deep dive, as we do every week now. It's almost like a tradition we've started here. Forget the news. You can get that from Kane Corns probably. He'll probably tell you when he goes off on his volcano. We'd like to focus on some more.
Okay.
Have you not seen the volcano?
I've seen it. It was just a really odd impression of the volcano.
What was your impression be?
Well, I'm not going to lower myself to impersonation. That's the lowest form of comedy, Liam.
Exactly. What do you think? I'm
just because you're impersonating a podcast, it doesn't mean I have to.
You think I'm beneath that, Jesse? Absolutely not.
No, I don't.
Exactly. You should know me by now. Come on now. But
it's got one of those early 2024 episodes where it was nasty to you for an hour and a half. It's got that kind of energy to it today.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Give it to me. It's all good, Jesse.
Well, see, I do that to people who leave football games early.
Listen, mate. Listen. You know that I have a very, very serious ankle injury, and I needed to beat the crowds because I needed to get on the train early. You know that. How come you call? Why are you calling me out then?
I'm still going to bury you for it.
Fair enough. No, I don't like to do it, Jesse. You know I don't like to do it. I don't often do it. In fact, I never do it. I never do it.
I can't remember you doing it.
No, very special occasion in the fact that we were losing. Okay.
I don't think that's a special occasion. That's just called Wednesday, or Thursday, as it would be.
As it were.
But no, we will actually have a serious conversation now because I want to talk about Tasmania, which has become a little kind of sub-series on this podcast, I feel, over the last kind of 12 months or so because, there's some issues, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in the romanticism of the Tasmanian AFL concept while avoiding actually having mature adult conversations, not that type of mature adult conversation, but actual sensible discussion about what is going to happen when Team 19 enter the competition. So the big announcement on the weekend was Tasmania's draft picks for the 2027 AFL draft. Always a key building point for a new side is what do they get in that first draft. Tasmania have done pretty well from their allocation. So as things currently stand, they will receive picks 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 in the 2027 draft.
All the odds?
All the odds.
Can I might do this, Jesse, while you're talking. I might put my hand up if I have a question, like you're my teacher. I have a question.
Yes, Liam.
Are those arbitrary? How are they determined?
Because the AFL said so.
Okay, arbitrary. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But there's a key caveat in here, and it's the main point I want to talk about in our deep dive today.
Okay.
How the key caveat the AFL has made of those is 4 of those picks, so 5, 7, 9, and 13, so that's their 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th most valuable picks respectively, must be traded.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm going to come out straight up and say this. I hate that. And I'll tell you why I hate that.
Yep.
Because you're instantly devaluing that pick. So talk about setting up a team to fail. If you have to trade a pick, it is worth less than if you don't have to trade a pick and you put it on the open market. Now, it's one thing to force Tasmania to trade those picks. it's an entirely different thing to make it public. Because pick 5, the Tasmania have to trade, that could land them a significantly valuable player.
Sure.
You're talking maybe, I know he's not going to be out of contract, but they're desperate for Alex Pearce to come and be the captain, it seems to be narrative. If he wasn't out of contract, maybe that pick 7 or that pick 9, but you're talking a very high pick for your future captain.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you're looking at Corey Wagner for pick 5 because you have to trade it. I don't like this. I feel like already 2.5 years out from this draft, there is a raid on Tasmania starting very early here.
It's interesting getting this perspective from you, Jesse, because I read the article about this arrangement, and my first thought, as someone who is just a casual fan, let's say, not to say that you aren't, but you're much more in tune. But I read that and I was like, that's a pretty interesting idea, because all of a sudden you've got, some chance for parity across that early draft pick, the draft, I should say, that other teams can actually use as fodder. But I never thought about it from the perspective of it devaluing it, because it's a must. It's like, well, you got to get rid of that, Tassie. So why don't you have old mate over here? Vossi's pretty good up forward. Pick 5, please.
It also causes a potential salary cap crunch in 3 years down the line. Now, it's pretty easy to avoid that straight away, because you're probably going to have a team mostly full of kids or younger players in those first couple of seasons. But the reality is, if I'm an AFL list manager and I want that pick 5, I'm probably offering the worst contract I have on my books. I'm probably offering Sean Darcy.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that sincerely. If I'm the Fremantle list manager, I'm banging down that door and saying pick 5 for Sean Darcy. Because I get to offload a contract that still has 3 years to run at that point in the draft, 28, 29, 30.
Yep.
And is a hideous contract in terms of salary for what Sean Darcy has put on the field in the last 18 months. Now, obviously, 2027 is a long way away. The end of 2027 is a long way away. 1,000,001 things can change in that time. But if I'm a list boss, I'm going to be booby-trapping Tasmania, just like people did to the Gold Coast for many years. You talk about the Bose trade to Geelong, the salary dump trade the Gold Coast had to do, because they got themselves in these predicaments. That was just poor list management. I get the sense the AFL is trying to avoid that by adding this almost requirement to bring in some experience as part of their initial squad, which I think is totally reasonable. We look at Gold Coast experience when they joined the competition. You're talking guys like Josh Fraser, obviously Gary Ablett Jr. He really should have been first in that conversation, but he's the obvious. Nathan Bock. You're talking like solid players, sure. You can throw Jared Harborough in there if you feel like it. Solid players, but you're hamstringing yourself with having to give out the big contract. I mean, Carmichael Hunt was a farcical contract. That was more of a. It was marketing. It was marketing.
It was an experiment. Yeah.
That's not going to happen with Tasmania. I think that's pretty clear. Tasmania is a football state. But I look at this and we'll also talk about some of the other concessions, all the other benefits they get in a second. But to you, Liam, are you concerned at all that these picks are now significantly devalued for a team that's trying to come in and essentially start from scratch in a very competitive and even league?
Well, I mean, I hadn't thought about it that way at all. Like, for me, it sounded like a good idea, because in my head, as a layman, I was just like, yeah, pick 5. They could get someone good for that. Thinking about it with that lens on it, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's a bit nasty, a bit harsh. However, I mean, does Tassie have they've got 3 years? Do they have the time and the resources to potentially nullify those potential issues and work out a plan? Maybe get on the front foot, go to some teams and say, how about this, rather than the other way around? Could that be something that they could potentially do?
I mean, Gal's a smart operator. Brendan Gale, who's now in charge down there. Yeah, I think he'll be aware of what he needs to do to get the best out of this organisation early. But, to that point, you want to use Shaw Darcy's example. Where's he going to be? And I think he's a really good example, because obviously you can throw in, let's say, a hypothetical scenario to throw it to the crosstown where Oscar Allen re-signs at West Coast, gets his 4-year deal, say, so takes him through to 2030, and then his knees go again, or his back goes, which has been questionable. You're looking to offload that. pretty much straight away because your contract's your dollar value of that contract's high in terms of the salary, but the actual value of the player probably isn't pick 5.
Yeah.
I think if we got pick 5 for Sean Darcy, I'd be cackling on that floor next to me. He can't even run, so did a great deal. But I look at this and I see what the AFL is trying to do. And when I'm not coming on here to just poo-poo everything the AFL does and say, terrible idea won't work. I think it's an idea that leaves them wide open to being a bad mistake, and it seems like a fairly obvious flaw.
Mm-hmm.
But I can clearly see they're trying to avoid a repeat of the Gold Coast and GWS, young contracts, mass exodus quickly, pitfalls. That's fine. No issue with people trying different things. But I look at this and I think there's got to be a better way. We'll talk about some of the other concessions that they get now. Okay. So they get 2 mini draft selections to on-trade access to star 17-year-olds for trade assets. That seems fine. They get the Academy Zone, so Tasmania becomes theirs. Father-son access to Tasmanian players. So sorry, St Kilda, that means any Nick Revolt spawn go to Tasmania. Unlucky. Jack Revolt too. A select group of players from their VFL squad. So you talk about getting on the front foot, Liam. Maybe that's something Tasmania can be really focused on because we've seen the value in mid-season drafting and even late draft picks in the regular draft of getting elite-level state league players into the side. Maybe that's something Tasmania can be looking at setting up, giving that stability of saying, right, well, you move down here in 2026. We're looking for 10 players to make the list. You're going to get a 2-year contract after the team comes in. So you got 4 years in Tassie then, 2 in the VFL, 2 in the AFL. I think that works in terms of getting that stability. A number of 2026 Tasmanian draftees who will have the option of sitting out that year's draft, so 2026, to be listed by the Devils. Now, I'm not aware of what Tassie's underage pool is this year. That'll become overage next year, be eligible for the draft, but that obviously can be very useful. However, it's worth caveating that Tassie's talent pipeline is patchy at the moment. They can pump out a good player here and there. I'll come to you in a second. They can pump out a good player here and there, and they've obviously had some phenomenal players. But I actually wonder if they're better off looking at mainland concessions. But Liam, I'll throw to you.
Just a question, just a cheeky question. So you're saying there that one of the concessions was, so Tasmanian-born players can say, hey, Tassie, I'll come play for you and I won't go into the draft. I'm guessing then Tassie is still under no obligation to take these players. So that's also another risk for these players to kind of limit their choices. Or are you saying that they do the deal before the draft happens and it's just kind of part and parcel of the...
Part and parcel because they sit out the draft. So it's like a waiver.
Okay.
So they waive their right to participate in the 2026 draft with the understanding, based on how I'm interpreting it, based on the understanding they'll be a Tasmanian listed player the next year. But again, this is where it gets... Yeah, and also it's risky too because if you're going into the overage year, you're then sitting out a year of potential senior side development in 2027. You know, you look at players who made an instant impact this year: Langford at Melbourne, Murphy Reid at Fremantle, Isaac Kako at Essendon. We're seeing in 2025, Richmond is a perfect example here. Yeah. We're seeing in 2025 that you can make the seniors and get those experience under. But I think more than we've seen in recent years entirety. We've seen plenty of coaches willing to take those risks this year and give the kids a chance. So it's a balancing act. And also you've got then the risk of, there is a mainland pull factor for Tasmania. I'm not Tasmanian, so I can't attest to that, but we see it. I mean, you only need to look at economic statistics for Tasmania. That's talking about, maybe like an accountant or, just a normal office person, whereas $100,000 worth of AFL contracts, there'll be an element of state pride, but I think there's got to be an option for mainland players to opt in, not just Tasmanian players. Say, right, well, I don't want to take the risk in the draft. If Tasmania are happy to take me and bank on me, let me nominate. Let me play VFL for Tassie in 2027. I think there's enough players out there in the draft who might be looking. You're probably not looking at your pick 5s in that context, but you're going to get opportunities to then develop players in your system, get them used to playing together, assuming you're going to have the same coach in the VFL in 2027 as you will in the seniors in 2020. If you don't, that's quite silly. Get that system a year early. You know, yeah, you might not be poaching premium talent by doing that, but you're getting premium talent in that year's draft anyway.
Yeah.
You got pick 1 and 3 coming out the next year. Take the risk on a pick 35 who, honestly, doesn't want to go through that.
And I suppose if you look at Richmond and the draft class they had this year, I'd say most of them, if not all of that first round at least, have had some running time so far this year. Maybe save a couple.
Uze's been willing to play them.
Yeah, but then that's really enticing for a young player because obviously there's an allure about going to a big club like your Collingwoods or your Geelongs. But realistically speaking, are you going to get minutes? Are you going to get that playing experience? Like, I think even Murphy Reid at Fremantle everyone was like, well, where's he going to fit? And he got a chance in game 1. And, you know, we kind of had a chuckle. We had a chuckle in that first game because he didn't do a lot, but he kicked those 4 goals in 10 minutes. And everyone was like, who's this kid?
Yeah.
And he's been making the most of this opportunity, which is fantastic to see.
It is starting to go a bit for Murph, I think.
A bit what, Jesse? For the podcast listeners?
A bit down, a bit poo-poo.
Which is going to happen for a first-year player anyway.
Of course.
Of course. But if you've got an interstate player or someone outside of Tasmania, a mainland, as you say, who is keen to have that opportunity and knocks on Tassie's door and be like, well, what about me? It's not a terrible idea. But then does that set then a precedent or a tone moving forward that you can't then maintain? I know obviously you can just say, no, it's this year only and that's it. But
you only do it before the team's in the comp.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's no way you do that after because they're an AFL side. It's the same playing field for everyone. But, you know, we're talking about force trading picks here, which inherently undervalues those picks. You know, you may as well broaden the periphery to other ideas that may or may not work.
Yeah, true. And then 27, you said they have first round picks just automatically as well?
So that draft hand is 2027. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. That's 2027. So
yeah.
That's the late, obviously, after the 2027 season is completed, draft happens going into 2028.
My
That's when
apologies.
Tassie meant to be here. But still a bit of water to go under the bridge. And before we finish this deep dive, Liam, North Brisbane played at Hobart on Sunday evening.
I was like, I've never heard of North Brisbane before.
North Melbourne and Brisbane played in Hobart on Sunday evening. Crowd around that 5,000 mark. Now, there's a bit of commentary on social media, you know, is this fine? Is this not fine? First of all, horrible time slot.
Yeah.
Setting up the game to foul, horrible time slot. But 5,000 is still a low crowd. Is that at all a concern?
Well, I mean, I think they're banking on the fact that, you know, if you have that attraction of your own team, if you have an attraction of a new stadium and not just the local cricket ground they've turned into a footy oval, if you've got those Ninja, and no one saw that game coming either. If you have all those extra amenities and entertainment stuff and the stadium, it's just naturally going to attract more people. Like it's yeah. I don't think it's a concern now.
Okay.
Because I don't think that they're marketing this game for anything other than an exhibition game for Tasmanians to go and watch. Much like the UTAS ones with Hawks, which sometimes pull 9, 10 if they're lucky, which is pretty good for that stadium, to be fair.
But that's the awkward thing because that's in Launceston, which is
true.
And this is where I think we're starting to run into issues because yes, they're uniting the Tasmanian banner under one team, but you know you only need to look at the narrative around Macquarie Point Stadium development to be: is it a team for the South?
I'm going to quickly Google something while you're...
Are you Googling distance between? It's about an hour, 10 minutes.
2 hours and 16 minutes.
There you go. Long way.
It's quite a trek.
But this is the thing, and that's not even factoring in Burnie and Devonport.
Mm-hmm.
2 major cities for Tasmania, the two other major cities right at the northern tip. You know, there are issues for me with this bid, and I've made that clear. And it's very exciting that Tasmania get a seat at the table, and that's fantastic. But it's a huge risk, and when you're forcing your new club to discount key assets, before they've even started, I'm just worried that we're setting them up to fail.
I'm sure that's the spin they'll give, though, right? They'll give the spin more so from the perspective of my thought process at the start of like spreading that out, getting good players to come in, enticing other teams to give up players. But it's a very interesting take on it, Jesse, and one that I think should make some people question that as well. To be like, well, that kind of goes against everything that the draft is for. It's a negotiation table. You know, you've got to throw things around. If they're set in, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Have you ever played one of those American sports games like NBA 2K or Madden?
Sure.
Yeah. You know how you can, if you play like a season mode, you can do like trade override and force the computer to accept your trade? That's what it's going to be like with pick 5. We are offering you Corey Wagner. Do you accept this trade? You get no say. You have to trade the pick. Here you go. Now, yes, there'll probably be 18 teams lining up with a bid. Yep. But if there's 18 teams offering Tyler Brockman and Corey Wagner, you know, you're almost putting them in one of those computer-generated wheels and just hoping for the best.
Yeah, fair shot. Fair shot. Good cover, Jesse. I like that one. Very good.
We'll keep our listeners abreast on Tasmania as things develop, because it's all well and good to say, oh, look, new things are happening, but nuance is key when it comes to building a new side. And maybe I'm a bit boring, but I find this stuff quite interesting, seeing how they're developing it all. And hopefully, if you're tuning in, you do too.
It's going to be a different take to, I think, what a lot of the media will give as well. Like, I think having that difference of thought process on this is a good thing to have. So get involved, dear listener. What are your thoughts?
And we will do a Team 20 deep dive later in the season as well, when I run out of ideas and we just need to fill a week. Because
as in who's going to be Team 20?
Yes. So we'll talk about the possibilities, why almost all the possibilities are bad, and why the AFL should be an 18-team competition, preferably a 16-team competition, forever.
That could be another one, Jesse. Who would you cut?
St Kilda. Next question.
I should have known.
Honestly, also probably Fremantle. There you go, 16 teams. I can just start again. Yes.
No. How dare you? Well, who would you support then, Jesse?
I don't know about support, but I know who I wouldn't make me miserable every week. I could be a true neutral. I go back supporting East Fremantle, actually. Make that my full-time commitment.
Just keep it local. Keep it local.
Well, between them, they've won 30 premierships. It's just a shame that one club has won all 30 and the other club's won 0. But that's nice.
Is what it is, eh? Is what it is.